most people are not going to celebrate your successes. Most people are going to celebrate your failures. They're going to say, I told you so, or you shouldn't have.
It's in accepting that I have failed, or my idea has failed, but I haven't failed, and separating the two and just learning to sit in that place of discomfort a little bit.
The scariest thing I ever did was walking out of a well-paying job, saying goodbye to a very cushy lifestyle of PAs and, international travel and business class to, an office in Midrand and three of us sitting around a desk. Within the first year, we had lost our biggest supporter and we had lost our biggest funder. So I think that was my first failure. My first failure was the worst failure.
What did you think in that moment?
You've
at this point you have a family as well.
Correct.
So how does that last?
My daughter was like 4.
Oh my God.
Sleepless nights are an understatement. I think I just did not sleep.
So what do you lean on when you are going through such challenging failures? Some of us would have therapy, and as you call a coach.
Can I say wine? Or is that bad?
And then wine and whiskey comes in, or you just, pull the curtains, switch off the TV, and just hide under the duvet.
Go into the fetal position.
Yeah, exactly. What are your go-to things when you are dealing with challenging times?
I keep on telling people that it's not a failure, it's an opportunity to learn and an opportunity to grow. So take it on the chin and just keep looking forward. If you keep looking backwards, you're going to eventually trip over.
Yeah.
It's just the idea of moving forward. And I think if you can do that, as hard as it is, you will be successful.
Everything is figureoutable.
No, that's so true.
And actually, everything is figureoutable.
Yeah. And I said to her, we're going to put a stake in the ground now. We're going to either move forward or we're just going to end it. Because we can't continue doing what we're doing and expecting a different result.
Andrew, I am so excited to have you at the Cheers to Failure podcast.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here.
I'm so glad you accepted my invitation.
It was a wonderful invitation.
What did you think we're going to talk about? I mean, how did you feel about the title of the podcast?
Well, you blindsided me a little bit because
I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. You sent me a WhatsApp saying, "Would you mind being in my podcast?" And obviously, I'd love to have a chat with you.
Thank you.
Then came, oh, by the way, the topic is Cheers to Failure, and I was like, "Oh my word, failure." Do I really want to regurgitate all the failures I've had in my life? But I think, on reflection, actually, a failure is just a stepping stone to something better. So I think it was a good opportunity to chat to you about what it is. Just chat about it,
yeah. Do you know, I usually I've learned to talk about the failures I have experienced in my life.
Yeah.
And it's incredibly empowering because you own your narrative. You even own the difficult and challenging things that are not talked about publicly or not talked about often enough. But I thought because you work in an industry where failure happens so publicly often, whether it's a campaign that doesn't work or it's a pitch you don't get awarded or a client that fires you as an agency, it is all very public. It doesn't happen in the isolated corners. Let's talk first about your upbringing and growing up. How did you deal with failure and how were you raised when it comes to things like that?
Yeah, I think I come from a very strong religious background. So my family is very religious. My dad and mom don't necessarily have a huge amount of money, but they invested in their children. I mean, I was very lucky to have a very stable and loving household that I grew up in. I think failure for us was one that we spoke about openly as a family, which was also good. Failure for us was mainly revolved around things around school or sports. Not getting the badge at school or not getting the marks that you hoped for. But my parents actually taught us that, things happen for a reason. I've always had this theory on return on luck. So it's you get a lucky break. It's what you do with it that makes a difference. And sometimes a lucky break is actually a failure. It's not always success. So I think that from that perspective, I was extremely lucky.
And now the business person you are, with all of the clients you've interacted with and the big global brands you've worked on, how do you interpret failure? The Andrew that is running multi-million rand businesses.
I think entrepreneurship is not an easy thing. In fact, we hide failure as much as we can. So while advertising as an organization and as a vocation is very out there and very seen, I think advertising people are generally quite nervous about putting anything out that shows a failure. I think when it comes to big multinational clients, having those strong relationships was always important. I honestly believe that, I mean, you and I worked together, and we had very honest and frank conversations often around failures that happened in my organization and vice versa when things weren't going well on the client side. I think that with all those multinationals and with all the clients that we did interact with, that open relationship was the most important thing. And as soon as that relationship failed, the business failed.
Yeah. And what I love is the open relationship.
Correct.
Because I'm that kind of leader. I would usually say to you guys, and often say, you will know when I'm happy and you will know when I'm not happy.
Correct.
We will celebrate together when a campaign works, and we will be in pain together when a campaign has failed.
Exactly.
And we had some of those conversations with great respect and really just wanting the best product for the businesses we lead at the time. What kind of person do you think struggles with failure because you've built big teams across geographies, whether they're servicing a client here in Africa or in the Middle East or in Europe? What do you look for when you are recruiting for your team?
I think it's a strong self-belief. Advertising people sometimes lack that. We're putting out a piece of creative work that can be highly criticized, and many people take that extremely personally. And creative people are not the easiest people to deal with. They come with a lot of baggage, if I can say the word baggage. I mean, probably more about the artists. They generally are artists or writers. And they're not the easiest people to work and collaborate with. But if they have a strong self-worth, that they totally believe in themselves more than their work, I think that they generally are easier people to manage. And we've had some successes and some failures in that space. A very wise HR person once said to me, you either hire for commitment or you hire for talent. So I kind of steered towards commitment. So if somebody looked like they really loved my company and were engaged and were excited about working at the agency, I would hire them immediately without looking at their portfolio. I think it's a combination of both. Commitment and talent go well together.
I have found that the teams that are emotionally connected to the work produce great work.
Correct.
And the only thing that becomes a problem is if the client is not happy with what they've emotionally committed
exactly.
to. And what then tends to happen in when that occurs is I've got to remind the creatives that we are all serving our clients, and I've got an executive floor to report to.
Yeah.
So if this product isn't the one that the organization is ready for or that the organization had in mind, there is no way. I mean, I want to give everybody a hug, but and on the other side of this hug, the work must be fixed. How do you navigate conversations with your clients when you are seeing this tension between the creative passion and the goals of the organization?
Yeah, I think it's very important to unpack and very clearly unpack what is going wrong. I mean, very often, agency people don't listen. We don't. We interpret a negative comment as something that that is personal and as seen as an attack, versus something that can possibly make the piece of work better. I think it was very different working with you and your team because it was done in a very clear and concise way. There's nothing worse than when somebody says, "Oh, my wife didn't like it." So we used to get that. And that's quite a tough thing to have a conversation with.
Oh, my kids haven't seen the ad yet.
Exactly.
You are not on YouTube if my kids haven't seen it.
Exactly. So that's a more difficult conversation to have with the client when the work is right. It's just getting judged incorrectly. I think when it comes to judging the work and giving creative feedback, negative feedback, as I keep on saying, is not negative. It could result in something much better.
Yeah, yeah.
Both for the agency and the client.
Yeah, yeah. So do you have a failure that has changed how you make decisions in business?
I've had lots of them.
Yeah.
I think the biggest one was probably, when we started this company, I walked out of a big multinational agency, literally walked out the door with the creative director and the strategist. We were told to, go on to garden leave, and it was quite a scary thing to do. But within the first year, we had lost our biggest supporter, and we had lost our biggest funder. So I think that was my first failure. My first failure was the worst failure.
What did you think in that moment?
I just thought
you've at this point you have a family as well.
Correct.
So how does
my daughter was like 4.
Oh my God.
Sleepless nights are an understatement. I think I just did not sleep. We were in a stage of it was only a year in, so we had very, very small clients. They couldn't sustain the agency without the funder. The funder was pulling all their cash and asking for it to be paid back.
Oh my God, it's all happening. It's all happening at the same, simultaneously.
And we were in their building, and they said, you can possibly stay, but you need to now pay rent. So it was it just felt like the end of the world, really, because the company was born out of a passion for doing something different in the advertising space. And it just felt like the rug was being pulled out from under our feet, and we all have to go back to what we had left and what we had hated, which was quite devastating for all of us. I mean, especially for the 3 founders of the organization. So I think that failure made me very circumspect when it comes to contracts, when it comes to commitment, when it comes to clearly understanding who's in and who's out. Even down to selecting clients. Are they really the right client for this organization? Is this a client that's going to stay with us for the long haul? Is this somebody who's going to believe in what we're trying to do at the organization? Or is this somebody who's just joining us because, they like the little piece of work that we generated in the pitch? So I think that first failure, which was a massive failure,
on several levels.
It did. Actually, it really was. I mean, but then there was a return on luck. So, that failure led me to, for all of us, to really try hard to secure as many accounts as we could within the period of time that the funder had said we have until we're out. And literally, we won 3 big pieces of business within 3 months, enough to sustain the business.
Yeah, that's
so
brilliant.
We could have all given up, and we could all said, okay, well, thanks very much. We'll just go back to corporate. But we didn't. We really put the effort in, and we were return on luck. I mean, it is a lucky break.
It's a lucky break.
But we were lucky enough to get those 3 clients, which really established what Brave was.
Yeah. So what do you lean on when you are going through such challenging failures? Some of us would have therapy, as you call it, coach.
Can I say wine? Or was that bad?
And then wine and whiskey comes in, or you just, pull the curtains, switch off the TV, and just hide under the duvet.
Go into the fetal position.
Yeah, exactly. What are your go-to things when you are dealing with challenging times? I'm
very lucky to have a supportive wife who listens and gives good advice. So she comes from the corporate background. So I think when I told her what I was going to do and start Brave, she thought I was absolutely insane. But very supportive. So I think you're insane, but you seem to want to do this, so go for it. And I could bounce a lot off her. So when this funder withdrew their cash, it was difficult, but I could sit down with her and say, we might have to make some changes. We might have to downgrade. We might be selling our house. We might, or we. That school our daughter goes to. That's very expensive cancellation terms. So you do have all those thoughts going through your head, but you have those frank and honest conversations with your partner. It makes it a lot easier than I think if you're on your own.
Yeah, for sure.
So I was very lucky in that space, and to have that support, I think during those tough months was very good. I also was very lucky because I had 2 other partners who we built this business together, both in their own ways insane. but complementary to my anxieties. So when I'd go, I think we made a mistake, one of them would say, "Are you insane? We did the best thing ever. We're going to make this work." And when I would say, "I think we can make it work."
Something's now wrong with you.
Yeah. I think we better rethink this. They're like, "No, we're not rethinking it. We're doing it."
Yeah.
And that was also a great support for all three of us. I think I always said that it was like a tripod. We needed all three legs to keep going.
Yeah.
And as soon as one was pulled out, that company would have fallen over.
Yeah, I think it's what's beautiful from your story is the different characteristics you each possessed,
yeah.
and how you would look at things from completely different perspectives. Yeah. And I guess emotionally, there was also a range. When one is panicked, others are calm,
yeah.
and you could swap those moments of panic.
Yeah.
Do you think that you are now more resilient than you were then?
Oh, that's a good question. I think resilient, yes. I think I have different anxieties and
it never
different
stops,
worries.
basically.
I don't think it ever
never stops.
I think, you get to a certain age. I was telling your crew here that, I just turned 50, and it feels like it's a strange place to be, because, I have now sold the company. So what next? If is 50 going to be a failure for me? So, is the next step a failure? So I think that, there's a lot of different anxieties. So maybe not necessarily money anxieties or children anxieties, but
just choice
anxieties.
What
next? What is your next,
Yeah.
So.
And how do you calm yourself when you're asking that question? Because I can imagine, some of us do get stuck overthinking, because there's now, obviously, not that then there was little to lose.
Yeah.
Now there's like 10 times more things to lose.
Absolutely.
How do you manage your brain so that you are still able to make the most practical decision?
Yeah. I think one of the things I have done in the last few months is surround myself with young entrepreneurs. I think this country is absolutely amazing when you look at entrepreneurship and the drive of young people within South Africa to do things differently. I think technology is changing so fast, and there's so many wonderful people in South Africa who are grabbing onto this technology roller coaster and are doing some really interesting and amazing things. So I've been doing a lot of mentorships, a lot of sitting down with people, helping them do business plans, unpack. They've got great ideas, just don't know how to execute it. A good idea, badly executed is a bad idea. I used to say that to you all the time at Momentum. Yeah. So, it's just millions of people have really good ideas. They just don't know how to take it to market. So I think I found my little niche at the moment in just helping people. And that also opens a number of doors. So, when you start talking to people, suddenly you realize that actually you've got a lot to offer, and that maybe there's an opportunity in a space that is totally different from where you came from. And that, I think, has quelled some of my fears of failure at 50.
Yeah. And I think you also, when you're with people, you realize that maybe your failure is not that bad. When you're like, ooh, looking at you, you got a lot of things to worry about. Have you had moments like that when you're meeting with friends or colleagues and they're like, they're going through the worst than you?
I think so. I think, as I said, many people don't like to talk about failure, but I've been encouraging people to. There's this fantastic book I'm reading, just by chance, by the way. It's called Short Stories of the 50 Greatest Failures in the World.
Oh, really?
It's actually a great little book. I was reading it on holidays.
Yeah, I should
but
get
out
it.
of failures come really amazing things. Penicillin comes from a failure. Tea comes from a failure.
Really?
Tea, yeah.
Oh, really? I didn't know tea came from failure.
So there's I keep on telling people that it's not a failure, it's an opportunity to learn and an opportunity to grow. So take it on the chin and keep looking forward. If you keep looking backwards, you're going to eventually trip over.
Yeah.
It's just the idea of moving forward. And I think if you can do that, as hard as it is, you will be successful.
Yeah, I just get so frustrated and sad when I see people not living in their best potential because of the fear of failure.
Yeah.
I remember having a conversation with a friend who was buying a fragranced candles and was just stuck in the inability to choose a fragrance that would work in her home.
Yeah.
And then I thought, like, it's not that bad. It's a candle. if
Don't
you
overthink it.
Don't overthink it.
Absolutely.
But do you find that there are moments where you have been overthinking small things?
Absolutely.
And describe one of those moments for you.
I think the problem, that is exactly when entrepreneurs fail, when they overthink. When you stop believing in why you started something. So when we started Brave, an example, Brave by definition was its
about
name.
being,
the Brave agency. It was, the house
And I
of
remember
Brave.
loving your pitch because you were brave and you pushed us to an uncomfortable space that was necessary for what we wanted to do at the time.
Exactly. But then you start sometimes, especially me, I'm glasses half empty guy sometimes, most of the time. So, you start overthinking the basics of your organization and what was built to do. And, then you start making mistakes, you start hiring the wrong people, you start investing in the wrong spaces, you start questioning whether you have set up something that has longevity. And those can all lead to failure thinking in your head, which is a problem when you're an entrepreneur. I've been encouraging the people I've been chatting to, especially in the AI and in technology space, that it's important that you have your end goal in sight. And don't lose sight of that end goal. So you start where you want to finish, is my line.
It's a beautiful line,
So where do you want to finish with this thing? And then set that course and go for it. Don't look back. Even if there are, if some diverts along the way. How do you handle that, and how are you going to move forward? And it's been good conversations to have with them.
Yeah, one of my favorite expressions a couple of years ago, word of the year. You know how I always start the year with that. So one of the years, somebody had a quote on their profile which said, "Everything is figureoutable."
No, that's so true.
And actually, everything is figureoutable. I think when we make bold and brave decisions, sometimes we don't expect for any blockage to exist. But I actually think you are unrealistic if you don't walk into a conversation with a client or a creative presentation like with the end in mind. Understand that as long as there are different opinions and thoughts in the process, there will be disagreement. And there will be sometimes very subjective judgment. How do you deal with people who are casting subjective judgment on an idea that you really believe is a winner?
Yeah, I think I worked with a big multinational. I won't mention the name, and I think what the best route I could say to take on when people are questioning the value of you and your organization is to have that frank and honest conversation. I mean, with this big multinational, I literally walked in, sat down with the marketing director, and I said to her, "We're going to put a stake in the ground now. We're going to either move forward or we're just going to end it, because we can't continue doing what we're doing and expecting a different result. We're not, neither of us are in a happy space. So let's work through it. Let's see where we get to, and we're putting this stake in the ground and we're moving forward." We had the business for 5 years, and we'd seen massive churn of people on the account, mainly because they're just unhappy. Having done that and putting that stake in the ground, resetting the ground rules, we retained the business and kept it for another 5 years. So
That's
a 10-year
brilliant.
relationship. And in fact, it's still with Brave, that client.
Oh, brilliant.
So I think you've got to have those conversations. You can't trip up on the failure and go, "I'm just going to bury my head in the sand and hope it all goes away," or I'm withdrawing and I'm not going to confront what is essentially going to impact my business. And I think when we did that and when we had those honest conversations, things got better.
Yeah, I mean, one of the ways we think about it in the team is that we burn bridges, we don't. We build bridges, we don't burn them.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And a lot of people are usually grateful for that moment of transparency, of bravery, of honesty, especially if you are intending to build and make the environment one where people can grow. Because the more churn they have, the more inconsistent that the work you deliver for that client becomes. So it is absolutely a role they should play to address the concerns. Are there moments where your wife thinks your way of dealing with failure, maybe at home, could be, I don't know, adjusted? How do you deal with failure at home?
I never failed at home. Like, what have you done about it? My wife is the one who fails. She should be on your podcast. That's great.
She's invited as my next
I hope she doesn't listen to this because I'll get.
I mean, you just like the planning a holiday, not packing the right stuff.
We've been married for nearly 20 years.
Oh,
so,
that is brilliant!
Yeah, so
congratulations! Yeah,
but failure. There's always failures along the way. I mean, it's never always a bed of roses. And I'd say that my way of dealing with failure is probably not the right way, which is I'm generally quite, I withdraw a lot. When I see something that's not working, I generally try and, especially in relationships, home relationships, withdraw from conflict rather than tackling the conflict. And I think in any relationship, as we've just spoken about, it's better to speak about it and hit the nail on the head and tell people what is worrying you or what is not working for you at that point in time. But after 20 years, I think we've kind of found our groove in terms of getting over the humps and the bumps in our personal relationships.
Yeah, I try to stage a softer moment to have that difficult conversation.
I think that's probably a good idea.
Let's go for a walk. Let's have a glass of wine.
Nice. Let's go to a romantic restaurant.
Yeah, let's just candle and piano in the background. And I'm not happy.
I must say, we once did that.
Oh, did it work?
It didn't, because it was, I'm even to say the restaurant, signature restaurant in Morningside. I've never gone back. That was about 15 years ago, and I was like, this is not working for me.
Oh, my God. Oh, you must go back. Desmond can't lose a client because of that. Okay, I'll do less of those then. I'll do less of those. As we get closer to wrapping up, how would you advise an Andrew who is 25 years old and is starting a creative business? How would you advise that Andrew to reframe failure? What things would they have to?
I think, especially a creative business, I always go, unfortunately, creative people think that if you've got a good idea, an Apple Mac, and, maybe if you're lucky, a client, you're going to be successful. And it doesn't work that way. I thought that, actually. I think being a little bit naive when you want to be an entrepreneur and you want to start something new, whether it's in the creative space or not, is a good thing. I think if you overthink something, you're not going to get there. Yeah. Naivety, kind of by definition, means you don't actually know what's going to happen, but hey, let's give it a shot. It's the scariest thing to do. I think it is the scariest thing I ever did, was walking out of a well-paying job, saying goodbye to a very cushy lifestyle of PAs and, international travel and business class, to an office in Midrand and three of us sitting around a desk. So I would just say, believe in what you're trying to do, believe in yourself first, work through what makes you different and what makes you unique. Live to that. So live to what is making you unique and different, and don't forget what it is, because very often, especially when it comes to creative people, we try and morph and mold ourselves into the likeness of our client, which is not why the client wanted you in the beginning. No. They don't want you to be the client. They want you to be what you pitched and what you promised.
Yeah. Do you know, I have loved actually telling agencies why they've won the business. Yeah. Because to your point, you are able to protect that and not lose it halfway through your relationship with the client. Yeah. I think a lot of young creatives forget to ask that question. Yeah. Because if the client doesn't offer you that insight, you are navigating based off the set of information you have about yourself, but not what's been affirmed by the client you are servicing. So knowing what makes you different and holding on to it is so crucial. Absolutely. Because then you are able to, I think, engage even in difficult moments in the right way because I feel like your loss is deeper if the thing you brought to the table is not there. Absolutely. And then the relationships are not working. But I'd never forget why you started and start with that end in mind.
And I've been telling a lot of young people, especially when you're on this journey, most people are not going to celebrate your successes. Mm-mm. Most people are going to celebrate your failures. They're going to say, I told you so, or you shouldn't have, or why did you, or you're stupid. Nobody is going to say, wow, that was amazing and wow, that was great, apart from your small group of friends and family that truly understand what you're trying to do. So don't listen to the naysayers. Don't let them make your failures, their failure of understanding what is good about your business, your failure. So I've been speaking a lot about that at the moment, because this economy is tough out there. It's not easy to pick up a client, to get a piece of work across the line. So don't let them celebrate your failures.
And I think also be comfortable with being uncomfortable, because
absolutely,
that is the pain you will feel is only known by you and really felt rawly by you. I think for a lot of us, again, we pretend like that pain doesn't exist. We are not bruised a little bit. I think it's in accepting that I have failed, or my idea has failed, but I haven't failed, and separating the two and just learning to sit in that place of discomfort a little bit, as long as you have people around you that are offering guidance and advice.
Absolutely.
Is there anything else you wish to say about failure that I haven't asked you about,
cheers
Andrew?
to failure. It's not bad to celebrate your failures. I mean, I think I'm not saying you go out and pop a bottle of champagne,
or you might.
Or you might. But I think what you need to do is go, what has this taught me? What can I do with it, and where will it lead me? And I promise you, most of my failures in the 15 years of running Brave, before I sold Brave, I mean, the sale of Brave was maybe a little bit of a failure. But you're going to have to believe that what you did is correct. You're going to have to believe that the failure has opened up a new opportunity, and that is this thing called return on luck. Just take that lucky break, failure, and run with it.
I think I live better knowing I have no regrets.
Absolutely.
I live better knowing that I have given the ideas I have in my head a chance. And like you were saying, I don't even think selling Brave is a failure. I think we transition through life, and it was the season was for you to move on to something else.
Correct.
I don't ever think that, because the work you did and the bravery you encouraged all of us as your clients to have, and the brands that you can be proud of, that you've built and shaped and gotten South Africans to fall in love with. I think that's been brilliant. I've really enjoyed
It's very kind of you.
having you as a partner on the other side.
Thank you, Nonto.
Yeah, that's the end.
Thank you. It's brilliant. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Andrew Shuttleworth on Cheers to Failure. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please won't you do me a favor? Click the subscribe button as well as the notifications button, so you know when we've got new content on our YouTube channel. And share it with your friends, whoever you believe needs to know that failure doesn't mark the end, but is filled with beautiful, glorious lessons we all need to have. Thank you.